What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to cover a three-game playoff slate, game twos, two Western Conference games, one in the Eastern Conference, and plenty of injury information to talk about, unfortunately. Mike, how are you on this fine Monday after a full weekend of basketball?
Doing good. Yeah, pretty winning weekend. I hit a couple side bets. Had a pretty good props weekend as well. So yeah, feeling pretty good.
Excellent. I'm trying to avoid the sirens from continuing to hone in on me here in New York City, as they usually are. I'm also trying to recover from basically just like a kind of a, honestly, outside of Brooklyn and Boston, kind of a disappointing Sunday
Yeah.
of NBA games. But especially for me, like the other close game was Milwaukee-Chicago, which I had like boatloads of money on Milwaukee in all sorts of ways to just destroy the Bulls in this series.
Yeah.
And I'm already down a unit on game one. I went right back to the well immediately on game two, though. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, let's go. Yeah, I got lucky, man. I when the Bulls made that run, I got in at a live bet, which I honestly
tried four different live bets in a row, and the line kept moving on me from minus 4.5 to 5.5 to 6.5 to 7.5, then 8.5. And I was like, I already have 10. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I got it 1.5 and 2.5. I timed it perfect.
Amazing.
So I was, pretty happy.
Well done by you. Not by me. All right, let's talk about the injuries on this slate. Let's start with Toronto, the first game of the night. 3 players listed doubtful for Toronto. Scotty Barnes, who's in a walking boot. Gary Trent Jr., who's apparently been dealing with illness all week, was not on the injury report prior. So kind of a confusing situation with Gary Trent there. Like, he got so much sicker during that game that he went from not on the injury report to doubtful. Like, I'm a little confused by that one.
Yeah.
And then Thaddeus Young, who's doubtful with thumb hyperextension. So what are your expectations for the Raps tonight? A team that did not have a lot of depth and has had their depth immediately challenged facing Philadelphia.
Yeah, not going to have Scotty probably for multiple games. He had the social media post about, it's the indication that he's going to miss time. So he's going to miss this one and probably more, which is terrible because they need him in a big way defensively. Thad sounds, quote, probably doubtful, according to Nick Nurse. So I think he's also sitting. And then Trent, I just don't buy that doubtful tag, man. Like, as you mentioned, he was sick before. You think he's a little bit better. So I think he has a chance to play. But for now, we got to take him at their word and assume that all 3 of those guys are out.
So if you remove those 3 guys from the rotation, I mean, you see here, Barnes played 32, Trent played 26, and Thad played 6. So that's 64 minutes from game 1. There's a lot of blowout minutes factored in there. You can see all the threes at the bottom for Flynn, Ban, Brooks, Bonga, etc. How does Toronto try to compensate for those 64 minutes? Who slides in the starting lineup, and who likely benefits here in terms of seeing their minutes increase?
I think Boucher and Preston Chua are the 2 guys that benefit in a significant way. We know that Boucher, they like to use him in this matchup. They've done it multiple times with him as a 4-man, and they need to. I think they just got to slide everyone up. You're basically going to play OG as a 2, Pascal as a 3. They don't want to put defensive pressure on Siakam, so he'll probably get like Danny Green or something. But yeah, I would expect Precious to pick up a huge role if you can avoid fouls against Embiid. There is a chance they start Kem Birch. But I mean, I don't even know if they want to go there. Their margin of error is so thin. I don't think Birch really helps them in this matchup. So expect those 2 guys, Birch and Precious, to pick up the biggest bump. But yeah, OG, Van Vliet, and Siakam are going to have to play stupid minutes here if they keep this game close. They're just so thin, man. Just what a big downgrade to lose. Your top 2 of your top 4 pieces.
Yeah,
and then you're one of your best bench pieces in Thad, who's versatile and fills the minutes that those guys would have been vacating too. So it's tough.
Yeah, and OG obviously was injured right before. We got Andrew and Chad asking if he looked good last game to your eyes. What do you think on OG?
Yeah, I thought he looked okay. There were concerns of his conditioning, which I mentioned earlier last week. I thought he looked better, but not 100% for sure.
Yeah, and then rounding out the rotation here, we've seen Nick Nurse play 6-man rotations, but we only talked about 6 guys there. So I assume they're going to extend it to 7 or 8. Who are the guys that are most likely to get in the rotation now that were not in the rotation before?
I mean, it's not going to be much, but I think probably a combination of Flynn, Banton, maybe Yuta Watanabe, but nobody's going to be fantasy relevant. I think it's going to be
Armani Brooks.
Armani Brooks, yeah. But I don't know if they want they're going to pull out a size, putting him out there. So I don't think Brooks is going to get that much run.
I think they need some shooting though. That's kind of the tricky thing. Like that if you are without Gary Trent, you need to have some shooting to flank Siakam doing all the playmaking. And obviously you have that when you have Van Vliet and OG out there, but those guys are going to have to sit at some point. And so who are they replaced by? If they're replaced by Birch and Banton or something like that, I mean, I don't know how they generate any offense. So this is a really, really tough spot for Toronto. I feel like I've come full circle and been wrong on Toronto in every single way possible this year, which is coming into the season, I actually thought they were an easy analytics over from last season, right? They had played all their games on the road. They had a better point differential than their record indicated. And I was questioning whether they would be a good over because I thought their lack of depth would be an issue. It could force them, if they suffered injuries early in the season, to look to kind of resetting. So I get that wrong. Then I come into the playoffs and I'm like, I really like the way this team matches up with Philadelphia. But if they get into the depth, it's over. And immediately game one, there's like 3 fouls on Van Vliet in like the first 6 minutes of the game. And then guys get hurt. Guys start going down. Joel's stepping on people's ankles, throwing elbows left and right, and guys are going down. And so now, I mean, gosh, Philadelphia has played down to their competition a ton, and they just played the best game they've played all year long by a wide margin. Yeah. So I would not be surprised to see them come out a little flatter this game and see Toronto like hang around a little bit. But man, this series looks like it's a short one now.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you lose 3 rotation players on a short team. I mean, you're in trouble. But yeah, the lines didn't move much. I mean, it's only 7.5. It only moved 1 point upon the news of Scotty, Thad, and who am I forgetting? Trent all being doubtful. So that's kind of crazy. I mean, you would think it would move more than a point.
Yeah. Let's talk about Luka and Dallas. So Luka listed as doubtful once again. We have been talking about this Luka injury, and there's a lot of information to be garnered from betting markets generally. And this is one where the betting markets basically early last week reacted so strongly to Utah. Went from basically they were like an underdog to opening as like even to they got by like Wednesday, they got to like minus 300 in the series or something like that. And so it was very clear from the betting markets that sharp people were moving money in a direction that suggests that Luka is not coming back for a while. So that is what I have been basing my expectation from. You have been basing your expectation on calf strains and looking back at the history of calf strains and kind of what the recovery timetable looks like. And we have each independently come to the conclusion that it's somewhere around 3 through 5 in terms of games that we were looking at. Has your opinion changed on this at all? Do you think it's a true doubtful tag? Do you think there's any chance we see Luka tonight?
Almost no chance. He was not really jumping at all when he was going through practice. Wasn't running. It was like a slow jog. So he's still like at least like 3-4 days away. I think game 3 is very unlikely. Game 4 is probably best case scenario. But yeah, I mean, they're minus 700 now. So it's definitely looking pretty bleak for the Dallas side based on the betting markets.
Yeah. In Dallas, what we saw in game 1, obviously, we've seen them play without Luka this year. He had missed 16, 17 games, something like that. A lot of Jalen Brunson, a lot of Spencer Dinwiddie. Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock played mid-40s minutes. I think that's going to have to be the case. I think Dallas is just really thinned out in terms of what they can do here. So I would not expect too much to change from a rotation perspective. I think there are some things on the periphery, which we'll talk about on the DFS show, that are important to contextualize and be prepared for tonight. But I think generally it's going to be the Brunson and Dinwiddie show once again.
Yep. Yeah, 26 drives for Brunson in the last game. Didn't shoot it much. Obviously, that makes sense against Rudy Gobert. 21 drives for Dinwiddie. And it actually flipped. We saw a lot of times it was Dinwiddie picking up slightly bigger role than Brunson. It was Brunson out touching him, out driving him, out assisting him. It was very much a Brunson-centric game plan with Dinwiddie, pretty much 1B/2A.
Yeah. In terms of other injury situations, there's not a lot else on the injury report tonight, but we did want to talk about Steph Curry, who came in with a minutes limit, came off the bench in that first game in game 1 against Denver. I think that the Warriors have to know that they don't have a huge threat with Denver here. So I have to think that Golden State's going to take health as the first priority for Steph over winning games in the short term. And so my guess is that this minute limit is incrementally raised as opposed to just gone one day, unless something dramatically unexpected happens in the series, like Denver wins the next 2 games or different things like that. But what are your expectations for Steph in terms of any minutes limitations tonight?
Yeah, so based on Steve Kerr's comments, it sounded like it was going to be a very kind of long process on how they're going to get him to where they want to get him to be. And yeah, I was really surprised how much they put the limits on him in the first game. But probably going to start. Steve Kerr said that they're going to cross that bridge when they get to it regarding Jordan Poole's starting status, which makes you think about the next series, possibly this one. I mean, Draymond could defend Jokic. We saw that. But yeah, so I you do the math on it. You think it's probably like a 4 or 5 minute boost from where he was in the opener. Usually that's like the first game backs when you look the most cautious. Obviously, you want to make sure you see how he responds, make sure he's not sore, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe it's a little bit more, but I feel like it's somewhere between 4 to 5 minute boost to like maybe a 6-7, somewhere in that range. So
we're thinking somewhere between 24 to 28, probably.
Yeah, 30 is probably like the best case, but I think he's got like at least 26. So I think we put 27, which it's a 27-28 range feels like where we're going to be at. Yeah,
makes sense to me. All right, that'll do it.
I'll add one more thing. Maxi Kleber was getting his feet wet, so he had limits on him in the first game. We saw Maxi Kleber was a big piece for Dallas, so something to keep an eye on how that could affect Dwight Powell.
Yep, absolutely. We will talk more in depth on potential adjustments. That's one of the things that Mike and I love to talk about and love to hypothesize on how teams might react to playoff results. We'll talk more about that on the DFS show tonight at 5:30 Eastern time. First tip is at 7:30 tonight. So we'll go 5:30. Technically to 6:30, we'll probably end up only going like 30, 45 minutes. But we'll answer your questions. We'll talk through strategy for those of you that have a subscription and kept behind the paywall. For those of you that have not, you'll see us tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern with another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, continue to grow this channel, grow the free content that we provide you. And if you like and enjoy these videos, please consider pressing, smashing, or hitting that like button to help circulate the content for others to see it as well. All right, enjoy the games tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. Take care, everybody.